A person's dining etiquette is more crucial than their facial appearance. From the way one eats, a person's character clearly shines through. Their eating habits, along with their sitting posture, can even reflect their innermost desires. As the ancients said, "A noble person eats to satisfaction, while a petty person never has enough, even until death." A noble person knows when they've had enough delicious food, while a petty person is never satisfied, no matter how much they eat. This doesn't just refer to food, but also to desires. A noble person always acts with moderation, while a petty person acts without restraint. And this also reflects a person's destiny and career. The ancients highly valued a person's inner character. They believed that a good appearance meant good fortune, and vice versa. When interacting with someone, they would observe what kind of demeanor that person exuded to understand their inner character and foresee their destiny. This was called reading faces to predict destiny. Of course, eating is primarily for our comfort, and it's hard to be absolutely perfect. But no matter what, self-restraint is essential. There's a saying, "Be mindful of your surroundings and others when eating, and be aware of your posture and presence when sitting." We need to learn to be observant and considerate so as not to become an annoyance to others due to a slight carelessness. Poor eating manners will lead to others looking down on you. I once had a colleague whose eating habit was to constantly pick through food with his chopsticks. When he encountered something he didn't like, he would use his chopsticks to push it aside on the plate. For example, one time we were eating spicy stir-fried squid, and because he didn't like onions, he would meticulously pick them out, push them to the side, and only eat the pieces he liked. It was quite off-putting. Another time, at a friend's wedding, I happened to be seated at a table with complete strangers. Every time a new dish was served, 3 or 4 guests would quickly help themselves. Some, upon seeing a favorite dish, would hastily scoop up a new serving even if they hadn't finished the food in their bowls. There was even someone who, seeing that everyone else had taken their turn, simply dumped the entire remaining platter into their bowl. The people at the table were dressed impeccably and looked refined, yet I found it hard to respect them. Dining etiquette determines both destiny and career. A friend once told me that from a young age, their mother was very strict about everything. She managed how they walked, stood, sat, and even slept. When eating, they weren't allowed to pick and choose. They had to eat whatever was served. I always felt that her mother was overly controlling, but it wasn't until I grew up and started working that I realized one thing. A person's eating manners can sometimes affect not only their job, but also determine their entire destiny and career. I remember over 5 years ago, I applied for a sales director position at a multinational electronics corporation. After passing the initial interview rounds, before they made a decision about hiring me, the CEO's secretary called me to inform me that the CEO wished to invite me to dinner. I was a bit surprised, but accepted the invitation. When I arrived, in addition to the CEO, 2 other directors were also present. I was startled, not understanding why they would give such a formal reception to someone who wasn't even a company member yet. It wasn't until I joined the company that I understood this was a company policy for important positions. That dinner was, in fact, the final interview, observing my behavior during the meal, especially whether I could integrate with the 2 directors, as my future work would be closely related to them. And this was also the most crucial interview round. From this, we can see how meticulous and detail-oriented those who achieve great things must be. The saying, "Great individuals never overlook the small details," truly captures this essence. One's upbringing can be observed through their eating habits, communication style, and interactions with others during a meal. The way you eat reflects your upbringing. There's a saying, "A person's upbringing is entirely evident in their eating manners." Good dining etiquette is not only shown in one's posture and eating style, but also in their attentiveness to others at the table, showing care for the feelings of those dining with them. I recall growing up at my grandmother's house. From a young age, she taught me to wait for the adults to be seated at the table before starting to eat. Only after the elders began eating was I allowed to pick up my chopsticks. Before eating, I had to invite my grandparents, parents, and elder siblings to eat. When eating, I had to be quiet without making any noise. When taking food, I was only supposed to take from the portion closest to me. Even if it was something I disliked the most, I had to quietly finish it. As a child, I always thought my grandmother was too strict with too many rules, and it was such a nuisance. Looking back now, I truly appreciate the profound wisdom in her teachings, which have benefited me throughout my life. Cultivating a habit over time makes it second nature. Gradually, it becomes part of one's character. Education begins with the smallest details, especially in ordinary, repetitive actions. As the ancients said, humans are born with an inherent goodness. Children are born like blank slates, and it's essential to focus on teaching them from the basic steps, learning to walk, stand, speak, wrap, and unwrap. To mature, to gain a foothold in society, and to establish oneself in life, one must possess a strong character. Children need to be educated from a young age, with family education serving as the foundation for character development. Character development here isn't about grand gestures, but simply starting with small daily actions, with parents serving as role models for their children to follow. 9 small details to read people. It's not easy to discern someone's inner character from their outward expressions and gestures, but you can still glean some insight into their qualities through a few superficial signs. There's an old saying, you can draw a tiger's skin, but not its bones. You can know a person's face, but not their heart. A person's true inner thoughts are incredibly difficult to fathom. So how can we tell who is good and who is bad in this unpredictable world? Sometimes small details in communication can help you discern someone's personality. Of course, you need to be subtle and sensitive enough to notice the differences. This content is merely for our valued readers' reference, providing some knowledge, because truly understanding someone's inner self cannot be achieved through just a few specific instances. It requires time to interact, learn, and experience life's ups and downs together, joy, sorrow, ease, and hardship. One should not be hasty in judging someone's inner character. 1. Touching the back of the neck. An insecure person often has a habit of touching the back of their neck, especially women. So, if you see a woman next to you touching the back of her neck, consider whether the surrounding environment is making her feel stressed or if your words or gestures are making her uncomfortable. 2. Tossing hair. Someone who frequently tosses their hair unconsciously while talking is often showing off. You can notice this more clearly if you pay attention to their words and elevated tone in specific situations. For women, this is a relatively accurate sign. 3. Feet direction. To determine if someone is interested in your conversation, it's best to observe if their body is facing you. If you can't clearly see their body, you can observe their feet. If they are not interested in talking to you, their feet will point away, tending to move away from where you are standing. 4. Tone of voice. To know if someone is lying, besides observing subtle outward expressions, another effective way is to pay attention to changes in their tone of voice. If, while talking to you, they suddenly utter a word or a sentence with a different, more emphasized tone, you can be sure that it's their true feelings. They truly want you to hear that statement completely, which is why they particularly emphasize it. 5. Reaction to surprise. When frightened, human reactions occur in an instant, immediately when an event happens. You might notice that in movies, actors often exaggerate their surprise. They express shock by holding their mouths agape for half a minute. In reality, no one does that. People's reactions to surprising events usually last a maximum of a few seconds. Therefore, if you see someone constantly feigning surprise or shock, it's very likely they are trying to hide their true feelings. 6. Absolute words. In a person's conversation, absolute affirmative or negative words often appear, such as, "I'm sure," "I guarantee," "This matter is definitely," "I 100% did not know." You should carefully re-examine the trustworthiness of the stories they are rambling about in front of you because they might be exaggerating or overstating. As you know, nothing in this world is absolute. 7. Actions when angry. When a person is truly angry, they find it difficult to control their behavior. Their actions will no longer be logical or sequential. This is unlike in movies, where actors playing angry scenes first bang the table, then yell, stand up, and finally start cursing. In a real situation, the order of these actions might be jumbled. People are no longer sober enough to think too much. They don't need any pretense, but immediately express their anger, erupting in spontaneous insults. Therefore, if you see someone who seems angry, but their gestures and words remain orderly, it's very likely they are not truly angry, or at least not to an extreme degree. 8. Behavior in desperate situations. When someone is pushed to their limits, their true character is revealed. If they can remain calm and rational in such a situation, they will certainly achieve great things later. This is called a person's great endurance. Han Xin is a vivid example of this. The story goes that in his humble days, Han Xin practiced martial arts and often carried a sword on the street. One day, as he was crossing a bridge, a ruffian blocked his way and challenged him. The ruffian dared Han Xin to cut off his head with his sword, or if he didn't have the guts to kill, he had to crawl through his legs to pass the bridge. Han Xin did not draw his sword, nor did he say a word. He humbly lowered himself and crawled through the ruffian's legs. People around scoffed at him, thinking he had no spirit. But later, Han Xin became a great general, wielding immense power, assisting Liu Bang in defeating Xiang Yu and establishing the Han dynasty for 400 years. It was this great endurance that forged Han Xin's extraordinary courage and unparalleled talent, enabling him to accomplish extraordinary deeds. 9. Intuition. If you find the above points beyond your capability or too difficult to implement, perhaps you should rely on your intuition. First impressions are clearly very important. In every situation, when you encounter something for the first time, a good or bad impression is etched into our minds. If you meet someone for the first time and your subconscious dislikes them, it's very likely that you won't want to interact with them again afterward. This is the effect that the ancients called the bird that fears the bent branch. First impressions are always very hard to fade because they enter directly into one's thoughts and can guide their perceptions for a long time afterward. Therefore, sometimes you don't need to spend too much time observing small details to quickly assess whether a person is trustworthy or approachable. This is because you are using your intuition, even if it might be right or wrong. Daily life is busy, and it's very likely you'll encounter unfriendly people and uncomfortable situations. Learning to see through things and people is not meant for you to be critical, prying, and lose faith in life, but rather to broaden your perspective and learn to be more tolerant of others. When you can empathize and treat those who cause you trouble with kindness, that is when you have reached a certain level of human development, approaching the virtues of a true noble person. By not missing out on good people and not resenting those who treat you badly, you will resolve many difficult karmic ties in your life. If you find this video practically applicable, please comment 9. If not, comment 0. Your feedback is very meaningful to us at Evolve Every Day. Thank you for your valuable time. 3 points to understand others. To read others' thoughts, you need to know 3 techniques. These techniques are crucial to master. By grasping them, you can easily recognize and understand what people are thinking. So, Evolve Every Day will tell you a Buddhist story that will teach you how to read others' thoughts. In a small village, 2 brothers lived together. The older brother was blind, spending most of his time at home, while the younger brother worked as a farmer. However, their farm was constantly raided by various animals in the fields. The younger brother worried about this problem, but eventually devised a solution. He thought, why not ask my blind brother to help chase away the animals in the field? He can sit in the field and shout if he hears any animal sounds, thereby protecting our crops. After some thought, the younger brother built a small hut in the field and had his older brother sit there, explaining, "Brother, if you hear any animal sounds, just shout and they will run away, saving our crops." The older brother agreed to his sibling's idea and began sitting in the field. Whenever he heard animal sounds, he would shout and scare them away. One day, a deer ran through and broke a fence before fleeing. Soon after, a king pursuing the deer also arrived at the field. The king saw the blind brother and asked, "Did you see a deer here?" The blind brother replied, "Your Majesty, I am blind. How could I see the deer? However, I can tell Your Majesty that the animal has already left the field. It's not worth pursuing. Your Majesty is wasting your time." The king was surprised by the blind brother's words and asked how he knew this. The king questioned if the blind brother was lying, as he claimed to be blind yet spoke of assessing the deer's value. The blind brother said, "Your Majesty, the animal you believe to be a deer is actually a pregnant doe. I have never heard of a king hunting a pregnant doe. That is why I said it is not worth your pursuit. Your Majesty should not waste your time chasing it." The king was astonished to hear this, unable to comprehend how a blind person could know it was a pregnant doe. He wondered, how can a blind person know this? Is he sure that the deer he is pursuing is pregnant? How can he confidently inform me of this information despite being blind? The king felt compelled to verify this and instructed his general, "I want this animal captured alive. I need to confirm whether it is indeed a pregnant doe. The blind brother seemed very certain about this, and I need to investigate. Go and find out if it is pregnant." The king's order was received and carried out by the general. Upon his return, he reported to the king that the blind brother was correct, and the doe was indeed pregnant. The king was astonished, still unable to grasp how the blind man knew about the pregnant doe. Many questions swirled in his mind, and he decided to ask the blind brother to uncover the truth. "I may not know if you are truly blind or not, but I have come here to ask you something. Are you willing to answer my question accurately?" The blind brother said, "Your Majesty, you may ask me anything, and I will answer truthfully." The king said, "You are a wise man and seem to know many things. Today, I have summoned you to find out if my wife is faithful to me." The blind brother replied, "Your Majesty, what kind of question is this? Your marriage has lasted for many years, and now you want to know such things? Why do these questions arise in your mind?" However, the king insisted, "You must answer this question. If you do not provide me with an answer, I will punish you with death." Hearing the king's threat, the blind brother said, "Your Majesty, if you want the answer to this question, you will have to do one thing for me." The king asked, "Tell me what I need to do." The blind brother responded, "To do that, Your Majesty will have to leave your wife alone with me in a room." Initially, the king was furious upon hearing this, but he eventually agreed to the request and ordered his general to leave the blind brother and the queen alone in the room. At that moment, the blind brother expressed a desire to touch the queen. Hearing this, the queen became enraged and began to strike the blind brother with her hands and feet with all her might. Afterward, the blind brother escaped and went to meet the king. The blind brother told the king, "Your Majesty, your wife is not faithful." The king, enraged, drew his sword and went to the queen. He posed the question, warning that any deceit would lead to the death penalty, and asked if she was faithful. The queen replied, "Your Majesty, you may kill me, but I am not faithful." The king rejoiced that everything the blind brother said was true. Hearing this, the king immediately returned and asked the blind brother how he knew his wife was unfaithful. The blind brother replied, "Your Majesty, it's actually very simple. I told your wife that I wanted to touch her, and she became so enraged that she began to hit me. When I said I wanted to touch her, she could have simply refused, but instead, she started to beat me, and in the process, she touched my entire body." "Your Majesty, tell me, how could such a woman be faithful?" The king said, "You are truly very wise. All right, answer one more question accurately and I will grant you freedom. Tell me, am I truly my father's son or am I the child of another?" The blind brother replied, "Your Majesty, why do you care about this question? No matter whose son you are still the king of this nation. Let go of the question." But the king insisted, No, I want to know the exact answer to this question. Otherwise, it will always trouble me. I want to know the truth." The blind brother responded, "Your Majesty, I can tell you right now whose son you are, but first I want you to promise not to be angry with me." The king said, "I promise, I will not be angry." Then the blind brother told the king, "Your Majesty is truly your father's son, but you also bear the influence of a miserly merchant." Hearing this, the king rushed to his mother and asked, "Mother, please tell me the truth. Am I my father's son or someone else's? If you don't tell me the truth, I will end my life right here." The king's mother replied, "My dear son, you are indeed your father's son, but you also bear the influence of a miserly merchant." Hearing this, the king felt happy and immediately returned to the blind brother. He asked, "How did you know that the shadow of a miserly merchant was present in me?" The blind brother replied, "Your Majesty, you have asked me many questions, and I have given accurate answers to all of them. If you were a different king, I would have received many rewards by now. But you haven't given me a single penny. From that, I deduced that your Majesty is very miserly." The king laughed and said, "Whatever you ask for, I will grant it. But tell me, how did you know what was right and what was wrong? How could you give such accurate answers?" The blind brother replied, "Your Majesty, I was born blind. If I had eyes, I could easily understand anyone's thoughts. The mind has its own language, and this language can be seen in a person's body movements. By observing their eyes, lips, how they walk, and their activities, one can understand what is going on in their mind. Based on that, we can know anyone's thoughts. But because I am blind, I perceive through actions. If I want to know something, I must assign a task to the other person to see how they perform it, and from that, I can understand what is going on in their mind." The king asked, "So that means I can also know others' thoughts?" The blind brother replied, "Certainly, Your Majesty can also understand anyone's thoughts, but first, you need to practice it within yourself. That means calming your mind and bringing it to the present moment. So today, I will tell you 3 ways, and these 3 ways are very simple and easy. But first, Your Majesty must do one thing, which is to focus your mind. When we focus our mind and bring it into the present, we can understand others' thoughts, because that person is thinking in the present, and we also need to bring our mind to the present. If we are thinking about the past, how can we know what the next person is thinking in the present? Because we are engrossed in the past. To know someone's thoughts, first, we need to focus our mind and bring it to the present." Afterward, the blind brother told the king, "Yes, Your Majesty, I will tell you 3 ways through which you can easily understand anyone's thoughts." The blind brother continued, "The first method is to pay attention to the eyes. The most important thing when we talk to someone is to look into their eyes, because eyes don't speak, yet they say so much. If we learn to understand the signals in a person's eyes, we can know what is going on in their mind, what they are thinking, and what they are about to do. I don't have eyes, but I learned this skill from Gautama Buddha many years ago, who was once my teacher and guide. Back then, I had eyes and could understand people's thoughts just by looking into their eyes. So, if your Majesty also wishes to know others' thoughts, you should pay attention to their eyes, such as their gaze and which direction they are looking. And if their eyes wander elsewhere when you are speaking with them, it means they are trying to escape the conversation and might be lying. If the person avoids direct eye contact, it means they fear their lies might be exposed and the truth revealed. However, if their eyes meet yours unblinkingly, perhaps they are sincere and interested. They want to talk and share their thoughts with you. Observe how their eyebrows move. If their eyebrows lower while they look away, they might be thinking deeply or worried about something else. If their eyebrows raise and their eyes widen, they might be surprised or curious about what you are saying. Also, observe how their pupils dilate or contract. The pupil is the black part of the eye. If the pupil dilates, it means they like you or what you are saying. They are excited or happy. If the pupil constricts, it means they don't like you or what you are saying. They feel uncomfortable or angry. Also, observe the white or red parts of their eyes. The white part of the eye is called the sclera. If the sclera is red, it means they are tired, stressed, or sick. They might not want to talk to you. I remember once meeting a tired person traveling. When we talked, his eyes constantly darted around and never looked directly at me. This showed that he was anxious and wanted to leave quickly. I thought he might be hiding a secret. Pay attention to their facial expressions. Sometimes a person exhibits various behaviors through their face. If you pay attention to their facial expressions, you can easily understand if the person is frustrated, very sad, or incredibly happy. You can also guess how they are feeling inside, and all of this can be determined through their facial expressions. Finally, the blind brother told the king about the third method. Your Majesty, there is another language. It is the language of gestures and body language. To understand a person's thoughts, we need to understand their hand gestures and body language. When someone speaks, Your Majesty may have noticed them constantly moving their hands and making gestures. Beyond words, body language plays a crucial role in conveying what a person is thinking. Your Majesty, the body and hands can say many things without words. It's like a secret way of communicating, where you can see what others want and feel just through the small actions they perform. Think about when someone quickly taps their fingers on a table while talking to you. When fingers make rapid sounds on a surface, they might be feeling bored, rushed, or wanting to end the conversation early. When someone crosses their arms, they might not like you or what you are saying. They are hiding their thoughts. The way they hold their arms acts as a protective wall for their thoughts and feelings from others. Observing this sign, Your Majesty can speak gently and carefully with them, helping them feel comfortable and open up. When someone frequently touches their face while talking to you, that also helps you understand their thoughts. This often means they are anxious, thinking seriously, or having a big idea. These small gestures tell you what is going on in their mind and heart. If we pay attention to these three methods and understand them accurately, we can quickly know what is going on in a person's mind, how much they are paying attention to our words, and what is happening in their thoughts. However, first, Your Majesty must focus your mind and bring it to the present. Only then can you pay attention to all their actions and understand what is going on in that person's mind. Your Majesty may have seen many saints and enlightened individuals who observe with great calmness and can tell you what is happening in your mind and what you came to learn from them. The biggest reason for this is their ability to read and understand you, because their minds are focused and serene, and that is why they can easily understand your thoughts. Remember that understanding others is not only based on observational skills, but also depends on how we bring our minds into the present and become sensitive to the nonverbal cues others send us. Your Majesty may have seen many saints and enlightened individuals who observe with great calmness and can tell you what is happening in your mind and what you came to learn from them. The biggest reason for this is their ability to read and understand you, because their minds are focused and serene, and that is why they can easily understand your thoughts. Remember that understanding others is not only based on observational skills, but also depends on how we bring our minds into the present and become sensitive to the nonverbal cues others send us. Based on these observations, you can infer that the manager might disagree or have doubts about the idea. Instead of ignoring it, you decide to suggest a more cautious approach or offer an alternative solution, helping to address the manager's potential concerns. Thanks to your ability to read body language, you contributed to a smarter decision in the meeting and demonstrated your communication acumen in the workplace. Thus, by applying this knowledge to real-life situations, we can develop our communication skills and understanding of others, improving relationships and work performance in daily life. 10 Arts of Reading People. To understand someone, you must master the arts of reading people through small details to see their true nature. However, this art is not acquired overnight. It requires experiencing many things, encountering many people, immersing oneself in relationships, and facing various challenges to accumulate wisdom. Similar to the 10 arts of reading people below, how many have you already learned? 1. Someone whose mouth runs constantly and speaks without thinking. Such a person often easily offends others, breaking relationships without even realizing it. A sweet-talking person who makes everyone feel pleased might exhibit high EQ, but what they truly think often differs from what they say, so you must be careful. 2. If a person speaks very little and is difficult to understand, what should you do? The easiest way is to use time to observe their true heart. Another very effective way is to subtly inquire about their interests and observe their reactions. However, there must still be moderation. 3. Joy, anger, love, and hate are invisible. No matter how complicated a problem is, only those who can control their emotions possess the true wisdom to live in this society. They have a strong heart. They may not be decisive, but at least they are lucid enough to solve problems. Such people are worth befriending, and furthermore, you should not offend them. 4. No matter how great the grievances, injustices, or failures, those who do not complain, lament, or wallow in self-pity, but instead quietly work hard through their actions, can accomplish tasks and achieve great things. When facing a small setback or being treated unfairly, many people often blame others and lament their fates, thus often achieving nothing glorious in their own lives. 5. They love to show off, not about themselves, but boasting about knowing some talented or wealthy person. This type of person usually lacks true ability and has nothing to be proud of themselves, so they borrow the aura of others to shine on themselves and stand out. 6. Someone praising you in front of many people will make you feel comfortable and happy, but you must pay attention. Such people are not necessarily sincere towards you. Conversely, those who prefer to give you feedback privately without exposing or criticizing, who genuinely praise you in a way only you know, and who truly preserve your dignity, these are the people who genuinely care about you. 7. When discussing matters related to personal gain, you must be careful with those who try to build relationships and speak of favors and obligations with you. This type of person usually only cares about their own benefit and might do anything without sparing anyone. Conversely, those who are straightforward about money matters from the beginning can often be more trustworthy, as their likelihood of going back on their word is much lower. 8. Overly arrogant people, though not well liked, can actually be more trustworthy. This is because their pride does not allow them to break promises. In their eyes, their honor is more important than anything else. 9. To quickly understand someone, observe them very carefully when conflicts arise between you. A person who usually hides their true self well can still reveal their true nature during an argument, because at such times, self-control is harder than ever. 10. They don't interact much normally, but when they need a favor, they become very enthusiastic and even proactively flatter you endlessly. This type of person will often quickly turn their back on you after using you, because what they value is your utility, not your person. 5 ways to teach yourself how to read people. 1. Observe how others perceive self-interest. Confucius said, "The noble person speaks of morality. The petty person speaks of profit." Everyone has a tendency to seek benefit, but there are also those who disregard self-interest, valuing benevolence and righteousness. In modern society, the pursuit of personal gain is a human right. However, if a person is willing to abandon morality, disregard kinship, and ignore everything for profit, then such people should absolutely be avoided. Self-interest has always been a sharp weapon used to test and reveal a person's true character. A person who can still adhere to principles and ethics when faced with personal gain, who does not disrespect close relationships, and who prioritizes the greater good is truly worthy of friendship. To see through someone, first learn to use the principle of profit. 2. Observe how others get along with everyone. Confucius said, "The noble person treats everyone fairly. The petty person forms cliques." Forming cliques mostly involves not thinking about doing good deeds, but only attacking, ostracizing, and isolating those who have offended them. Therefore, whether in the workplace or in other organizations, if a person gets along well with everyone, they are certainly straightforward, impartial, and open-minded. To see through someone, the second thing is to observe how they interact with others. 3. Observe whether others keep their promises. Confucius said, "If a person is untrustworthy, how can they be successful? Like a large carriage without a yoke or a small carriage without a crossbar, how can it move?" This means if a person lacks trustworthiness, what can they achieve? It's like a cart without wheels. How can it move? To recognize if someone is trustworthy, you don't need to conduct tests or observe indirectly. Just see if they keep their word when they speak and if they maintain integrity in their dealings with others. A person of absolute virtue will not easily betray their promises or abandon their integrity. On the other hand, a person without principles will completely disregard everything around them, always centered on themselves, speaking impulsively. Therefore, their spoken words often cannot be followed through, and promises made to others cannot be fulfilled. Trustworthiness is the most fundamental virtue of a person. Those who don't keep their word should be avoided as much as possible. 4. Observe others' attitudes when dealing with family. When asked about filial piety by a student, Confucius said, "The difficult part is the expression. If there are tasks, the disciples take on the burden. If there is wine and food, the elders receive it first. Is this considered filial piety?" This means that when people treat their parents, the most challenging thing is to maintain a joyful and harmonious attitude. Indeed, no matter who it is, people typically show their best side to outsiders, bringing all their frustrations home. This is a common human ailment. But a person with good morals can maintain a proper, gentle attitude even when facing their children or parents. Therefore, cultivating virtue is not merely about restraining oneself from being hot-tempered with colleagues, subordinates, or friends. More importantly, it means being able to maintain a polite and calm demeanor even when facing one's dearest loved ones. To truly understand a person, observe how they treat their family members. 5. Observe how others react after making mistakes. Confucius said, "People's mistakes are characteristic of their type. By observing their mistakes, you can know the person." This means that a person's mistakes are similar to the mistakes of others like them. Therefore, by looking at a person's mistakes, you can know what kind of person they are. Animals gather in herds, and humans group according to type. The kind of person dictates the kind of mistake they make. Under normal circumstances, it is very difficult for us to clearly see a person, but when someone makes a mistake, analyzing that mistake, conversely, makes it very easy to see their true colors. Smooth talkers err due to a lack of principles. Cunning individuals stumble due to deception. Righteous scholars often suffer setbacks for resisting evil, and idealists often falter due to naivety. Mistakes are a mirror reflecting a person. Recognizing mistakes is recognizing a person. Humans are calculating animals who know how to pretend. Humans are not as simple as other species, and understanding a person is by no means simple. However, everything leaves a trace. If you grasp the 5 methods above, you can confidently identify those with whom you can have long-lasting relationships in this colorful world. Zhang Guofan's Art of Physiognomy. So, how can one truly understand the human heart? Zhang Guofan possessed a special method, revered by generations as the Art of Physiognomy, summarized in just 8 lines and 40 characters. Righteousness and cunning, observe the eyes and nose. Truth and falsehood, observe the lips. Wise, thoughtful, and ecstatic, observe the demeanor. Career and success, observe the spirit. Longevity and brevity, observe the hands and nails. Troubles and storms, observe the feet. If you wish to ask about discipline, it is all within their language. 1. Righteousness and cunning, observe the eyes and nose. Zhang Guofan believed that a person's rectitude or deviousness could be somewhat discerned from their eyes and nose. If someone has squinting eyes or a crooked nose, their character is certainly not straightforward. Li Yu, a literary figure from the late Ming to early Qing dynasty, also once said that to know if a person's heart is righteous or cunning, one can at least observe their eyes. The eyes are the windows to the soul. A person's character can be inferred from their gaze. Those who habitually glance at others or whose eyes constantly dart around, not daring to look directly at others while speaking, may not be sincere. 2. Truth and falsehood, observe the lips. To discern if a person is sincere and honest, one can gauge it from subtle changes in their lips. As the mouth is the primary organ for speaking, those who speak slowly and honestly are highly moral, loyal, and trustworthy. Conversely, those who are glib-tongued, stirring up trouble, and slandering others should not be befriended. Similarly, people with thick lips are generally open, outgoing, and enthusiastic. Meanwhile, those with thin lips are largely argumentative, arrogant, and haughty. 3. Achievement and status. Observe the demeanor. Zhang Guofan believed that a person's achievement and status primarily depend on their demeanor or aura. What is this aura? Generally, when a group of strangers gathers, someone will quickly become the center of attention. This is because a person with a strong demeanor often earns the admiration of others. Such a person will naturally gain widespread support, making it smoother to achieve great things and attain fame and status. 4. Wealth and nobility. Observe the spirit. In life, some people are always depressed and gloomy. Such a person is often described as having a sullen face. A person with a sullen face is very unlikely to achieve great wealth or nobility. Conversely, noble and wealthy individuals are always cheerful, energetic, and open-minded, with a robust physique. Furthermore, wealth and good fortune are not only found in a cheerful spirit, but also in diligence and ambition. A diligent, ambitious person with abundant spirit is even more likely to establish great enterprises and achieve wealth. 5. Conviction. Observe the hands. Zhang Guofan once said that people whose palms have clear and shallow lines have a steady mind. In contrast, those with faint and disorderly palm lines have a chaotic and unstable mind. The term steady mind refers to inner conviction. When facing difficulties or danger, their mind does not waver. They remain calm and steadfast. Zheng Guofan also believed that a person's conviction can be seen in their fingers. Those with long fingers and thick palms are mostly resolute, confident, and know how to plan ahead. Therefore, they can establish great enterprises. 6. Troubles and storms. Observe the feet. Life is full of unavoidable challenges. Some people have a smooth life, encountering few storms, while others face countless difficulties and obstacles. In Zhang Guofan's view, to know if a person will face many challenges, one primarily observes their feet. A person with rough, sturdy feet indicates exceptional health. However, such a person is often restless and prone to creating their own troubles. 7. To observe discipline, look at their speech. Strictly speaking, these two lines are not considered part of physiognomy, but Zhang Guofan still regarded them as an important way to evaluate and understand people. To judge if a person is disciplined and has clear, coherent thinking, one should observe their linguistic expression. A person who speaks concisely, to the point, and can hit the core of the matter shows that they have an organized and disciplined mind. Conversely, if their language is incoherent and they speak off-topic, it often indicates chaotic, disorganized thinking. Insight. There's an old saying, appearance is born from the heart. A person's appearance can also reflect their inner character. Zhang Guofan's art of physiognomy, though consisting of only 40 characters, encompasses many aspects such as appearance, actions, and language. These conclusions are not only useful in many aspects, but also align with modern psychological theories. Therefore, if you can understand these 40 characters, it won't be difficult to see through people in the world. Heart creates appearance, appearance shapes destiny. Appearance is born from the heart is a concept in spiritual traditions, both in Buddhism and Taoism, which remains valuable even after thousands of years. Appearance is the surface, the external manifestation. The heart/mind is the inner quality. As the heart is, so is the appearance. Appearance changes according to the transformations of the heart, also known as circumstances shift with the mind. Appearance follows the heart's birth can also be seen as the heart being the cause of appearance, and appearance being the effect of the heart. A person's appearance is a combination of form and spirit. Form is the physical look one has from birth. Spirit is determined by the process of self-cultivation. Every thought and intention expressed in a person's daily life over the years condenses onto their face. This is called what is within will manifest without. Thoughts that arise will affect the body. If the mind is peaceful and calm, the heart serene, tolerant, and righteous, then the qi and blood will be harmonious, the 5 organs stable, the body healthy, and the facial features calm, with a bright complexion, making others feel pleasant and comfortable upon seeing them. Thus, interactions become friendly and joyful. Sunzi believed, appearance of form is not as good as appearance of heart. Debating the heart is not as good as debating virtue. In Tai King Shen Zhan, the most influential ancient physiognomy book, virtue is discussed as follows. Take virtue as primary, manifested in action. Virtue precedes form. Form follows virtue. Abandon evil to follow good. Avert disaster and avoid misfortune. The story goes that in Shandong, there lived a very skilled sculptor, particularly adept at carving images of demons and monsters. As time passed, his business flourished, earning him a lot of money. However, he was deeply troubled by his ugly appearance. Seeing a local Zen master with an exceptionally beautiful countenance, he sought him out to express his inner complex, asking the master for guidance on how to change his unappealing looks. The Zen master said, "Agreed, but first you must sculpt 100 Buddha statues for me. Once you're done, there will be a way to resolve your inner suffering." So he visited all the temples in the region, meticulously observing the expressions and demeanors of each statue. Afterward, he returned home and dedicated himself to sculpting. More than a year later, he had completed 100 Buddha statues as requested, each one solemn and exuding compassion, kindness, and tolerance. At this point, the craftsman was astonished to discover that his own appearance had completely transformed from before. It turned out that during more than a year of diligent sculpting, he had poured all his heart into perceiving and embodying the solemn, compassionate, and benevolent spirit of the Buddha statues. The good heart within him, dedicated wholeheartedly to creating those statues, had caused his own demeanor to change accordingly. He suddenly realized that this was precisely how the Zen master had helped him change his appearance, rather than waiting until the work was finished to show him the way. From appearance, know the heart. From the heart, know destiny. The ancients often said, appearance is born from the heart, meaning a person's appearance will change according to the good or evil intentions in their heart. A blessed appearance is actually created by a long-term heart inclined towards goodness, for good deeds bring good rewards. A kind heart and good actions lead to a blessed appearance and auspicious fortune. One's appearance is not fixed from birth, but is a reflection of the cultivation of one's character throughout life. A person with a fierce face, if they learn to cultivate compassion and nourish good fruits, that negative appearance will soon become good, and ill fortune will turn auspicious. Conversely, a person with a benevolent face who does not practice good deeds or accumulate virtue, whose heart often gives rise to greedy desires and resentment, will gradually lose their blessed appearance. In this world, the saying, "the heart creates the appearance shapes destiny," has always been passed down. Once, there were twin brothers, Gao Xiaoxiao and Gao Xiaoxi, whose gestures, speech, and intelligence were so identical they seemed like one person. After examining their appearances, the Taoist master Chen Ziyi said, "Both of you have green eyebrows and beautiful eyes, and are on the list of those destined for success. Moreover, the color in your eyes is now vibrant, indicating you will surely pass with high honors." When the examination period arrived, the two brothers traveled together to the capital, staying with a relative. Their neighbor was a young, beautiful widow. Gao Xiaoxiao dedicated himself wholeheartedly to his studies, his mind undisturbed. Gao Xiaoxi, however, could not control himself and had an affair with the young widow. Later, it was discovered by others, and the widow, overcome with shame, jumped into the river and committed suicide. When the autumn examination concluded, Chen Ziyi looked at them both in surprise and said, "The appearance of you two brothers has changed greatly. Xiao Xiao's eyebrows are purple, and his eyes are shining brightly. He will surely pass with high honors. But Xiaoxi's eyebrows have changed. His pupils are swollen, his nose bridge is short and dark, his complexion is dejected and gaunt, and his energy is cold and scattered. This must be due to moral transgression that has caused his appearance to change. Not only will he fail this exam, but there are also signs of an early death." After the results were posted, Gao Xiaoxi failed the exam, festered with resentment, and died. Gao Xiaoxiao became a high-ranking official, renowned and with numerous descendants. Chen Ziyi thus sighed with emotion. Discerning a person's appearance is easy, but accurately predicting one's destiny is not, because destiny is determined by heaven, but appearance is shaped by human actions. If one can align with heaven's will and harmonize one's actions with others, prosperity will surely last for generations. The heart is the key factor that determines a person's appearance. Hence the saying, observing appearance is not as good as observing the heart. One who possesses these 36 virtues will sooner or later receive blessings. 1. Knowing that being an official would be arduous and challenging, yet willingly serving the people as an official. 2. Acting with reason and compassion, being careful and loving to do good deeds. 3. Associating with noble individuals and sharing food with everyone. 4. Keeping away from petty individuals. 5. Regularly accumulating hidden virtues and helping those in distress. 6. Being able to help with household chores from a young age. 7. Not feeling disdain when encountering beggars. 8. Restraining oneself and yielding benefits to others. 9. Not liking to kill and not instigating bad deeds. 10. Remaining calm and undisturbed when facing challenges. 11. Keeping promises made to others. 12. Not easily changing one's behavior and character. 13. Often quietly reflecting on one's mistakes before sleep. 14. Bravely moving forward, not dwelling on the past nor becoming complacent because of it. 15. Not causing others to harbor resentment. 16. Not concealing one's wrongs or hiding one's shortcomings. 17. Having a thorough and meticulous work attitude. 18. Always remembering others' kindness and help. 19. Possessing a broad and generous mind. 20. Not oppressing the virtuous and not fearing evil. 21. Pitying and helping the desolate and impoverished. 22. Not aiding those who use strength to bully the weak. 23. Not forgetting old friends or past affections. 24. Doing things beneficial to the populace and society. 25. Having sincere and straightforward speech. 26. Feeling a sense of humility when praised by others. 27. Speaking politely with a gentle and pleasant tone. 28. Not interrupting others when they are speaking. 29. Often speaking of good things and praising other strengths. 30. Not complaining about coarse clothes or bland food. 31. Always behaving appropriately and properly anywhere and anytime. 32. Liking to hear good things, speak good things, and not being afraid to do good deeds. 33. Understanding and empathizing with others' hardships and aspirations, often providing relief and assistance. 34. Not bringing up others' past mistakes and grudges. 35. Doing one's utmost to help those in difficulty. 36. One who aligns with the truthfulness, compassion, and forbearance inherent in heaven and earth will find their own life aligning with these qualities, remaining steadfast. Every blessing has its root. Wealth comes from actively cultivating good deeds. Honor comes from humility, and a beautiful appearance comes from a gentle and pure nature. Hence the ancient saying, "The heart creates the appearance." If you find this video practically applicable, please comment 9. If not, comment 0. Your feedback is very meaningful to us at Evolve Every Day. Thank you for your valuable time.